My apologies, everyone. I had a little bit of an audio issue on the previous video, so we're going to give this a second go. It is the Richie Hicks Jr. Sports Podcast. I am your host, Richie, and today I'm going to speak on the Miami Heat and the Vegas Golden Knights punching their tickets to their respective finals in the NHL and NBA. I'm going to speak on a much-needed Yankees victory last night, gaining some ground on the Baltimore Orioles and the Tampa Bay Rays. And I'm also going to tell you about an upcoming show that I have. We're going to start this out in Boston on the hardwood. Miami Heat making light work of the Boston Celtics and head to their seventh NBA Finals since '06. 3-3 record during those finals. Pat Riley is responsible for one of those, while current coach Erik Spoelstra has the other two. Back to the LeBron James, Dwayne Wade, Chris Bosh era. To put it bluntly, I was very surprised with the way that this game went down yesterday. I personally believe that this was going to be more of a classic and not so much of a drubbing. I mean, this game didn't have that Game 7 feel. And I think it's predicated off of going back to Game 6 and going back to the way that particular game ended. In Game 6, what I thought was really interesting was the Boston Celtics celebrated as if they had already won the series, getting a very unlikely tip-in when it looked like the series was already over. The way they celebrated, to me, honestly showed an immaturity. Being that they're the team that was in the finals just a year ago and that they have always been on the cusp of the finals in recent memory, I really believed that I would have expected the overreaction from Miami. Losing a game under those circumstances could be very heartbreaking and could be very deflating. Credit to head coach Erik Spoelstra. He kept the environment and the atmosphere around that unfortunate loss very positive. And I feel that what we saw yesterday was an extension of what we almost saw in Game 6. The Heat were on a run to end Game 6. The Celtics got the really unpredictable tip-in. But that doesn't change the fact that Miami was playing better down the stretch. I think Miami carried that momentum back to Boston, which is a very difficult thing to do when you consider that you allowed a team to come back from 0-3. And in the end, I believe that the Boston Celtics have a longer offseason, not just because they lost, but because they have to really identify what stopped them from getting where they need to go. Boston kind of had a weird start to their season. You're talking about an interim coach taking over, who in the grand scheme of things, he did a good job, but this has to be viewed as a squandered opportunity for the Boston Celtics. In my opinion, the real swing in this game was the 56 combined points from 7 rotational players that were undrafted. I have alluded to these players time and time again as a big point as to why the Heat are so dangerous and can beat you in so many different ways. They're going to be challenging the Denver Nuggets in the NBA Finals. And I believe that on every level, the Nuggets really have the edge. I think they're a deeper team. I think they're a more talented team. And I also think that while Miami, what they have done is impressive, I think the Western Conference playoff layout is deeper and has more impressive teams. And I think that's going to be on full display in these finals. Out of respect for the kind of coach that Erik Spoelstra is, and out of respect for the kind of competitor Jimmy Butler is, I'm going to give Miami 2 games in this series. But when I think about the job that Nikola Jokic has done in these playoffs, I feel that he's the real MVP. I think they got it wrong. And I think he's just clicking on a different level. You insert, a secondary player, the next man up as Jamal Murray, and just a better bench and just a better overall team. Yeah, I think Denver in 6. If this was any other team, I'd probably say Denver in a sweep. But Miami has earned that respect for me to know that they're going to really fight. But the Denver Nuggets are the better team. And I myself will admit that I was stubborn on giving Denver enough credit during these playoffs. I am now a believer in them. They have earned my respect, and I think they've earned the respect of NBA fans alike and the analysts. We talked about East Coast bias. We talked about Denver not really having a history of really winning anything. And I do think that the media, to a level, and I said this on previous shows, favored other teams because of Denver's lack of past success. But you can't hold the past over anybody. This team is for real, and they're going to be the NBA champions in about a week and a half. Moving it along to the NHL, the Vegas Golden Knights to meet the Florida Panthers in the Stanley Cup Finals. That was settled yesterday with the Knights' 6-0 victory over the Dallas Stars. I would have to say that my big surprise here was that with Dallas having a chance to send it to 7 and having the home ice, they completely psychologically just gave up midway through this game. I believe that they were very frustrated that their shots were just not getting by the goaltender. It's as simple as that. I think Vegas's defense at key times in this game was huge. And I was actually surprised that on social media, I kind of encountered a lot of hockey fans speaking about how they feel that the return of Jamie Benn might have actually slowed down the Stars' momentum. I don't necessarily think that that has to do with this. I think this was just a matter of the Vegas Golden Knights basically looking like they've been there before, being calm in pressure situations, not just yesterday, but throughout the course of these playoffs. And the better team won, no doubt about it. I was slightly surprised that Dallas didn't pull their goaltender just to see if they could have lit a fire under the rest of the team. As goes their opponent, the Florida Panthers, what they've done is truly incredible. Similar to how I kind of identify the East in the NBA versus the West in the NHL. I think the Eastern Conference in the NHL was more of a gauntlet. I think there was more talent. While it is shocking that an 8 seed runs the table and is now in the Stanley Cup Finals, it doesn't change the fact that this was a particular season where teams in the East had more points than teams in the West. There's variables to that. Sometimes teams just beat the crap out of each other, and that is part of the reason. But I think in general, the Eastern Conference in the NHL was a superior conference to the West, and I think that's going to be on full display in this series. I've got the Florida Panthers winning this in 6, similar to my Denver prediction over the Miami Heat. So I've got one Florida team winning it, and I've got one Florida team losing it. Going to flip it over to the New York Yankees and MLB. Much needed series opening win in Seattle yesterday. Aaron Judge does it again, 2 home runs, and late in the game, he scaled the wall to make sure that one didn't leave it. Domingo Germán got to the 7th inning, and that was huge. It helps preserve the Yankees bullpen. I think what I also find interesting when we're talking AL East is that the Tampa Bay Rays and Baltimore Orioles got shut out on the same day. I'm going to say this, do not get used to that, especially with the Rays. They are second in runs scored in MLB to only my co-host Mike Zappi's favorite team, the Texas Rangers. Rays are having a great season. That's a blip. They lost 1-0 in a pitcher's duel to the Chicago Cubs. Today I've got all 3 of these teams winning. Interesting matchup on the mound today. We've got Nestor Cortez versus Logan Gilbert. Gilbert's been pitching much better than Cortez lately, but I'm calling for both pitchers to show up early. I like the Yankees for the win, though. But, yesterday's Yankees win, did not come without a loss. Losing Harrison Bader potentially for some time, we're going to find out what the MRI reveals. He was having a hell of a game. Hamstring injury. And hamstrings are tricky. We're going to find out the severity of it. But it's definitely bad timing for the Yankees as they are really starting to get healthy. This is a spark plug for the lineup. This is a table setter. This is a guy who plays phenomenal in center field. And he's always a threat to steal a base. And he's always a threat to score from first. So it is definitely frustrating to see this kind of injury happening yet again. But I do believe that the Yankees are going to ultimately win this series. And I think you're looking at just an exciting race. Injuries are always going to play a key in these kinds of situations when we're speaking about what is brought to the table in terms of just competitive nature. The AL East, going back to last year, it's just phenomenal how everybody has a winning record. And then you see what's going on in the state of Texas between the Houston Astros, who are always a mainstay in these kind of situations, and now an emerging team like the Texas Rangers. The Central in the American League, definitely kind of weak, similar to the Central being weak in the National League. But this race between the Rays, the Orioles, the Yankees, and possibly the Blue Jays, if they get their act together, is going to be very interesting. It's going to be very interesting to see how all of this plays out ultimately. It really could go any and all directions. We've got NFL Cut Day coming up June 1st. And I also want to make an announcement to the viewers. Coming up on Wednesday night, the 31st, 7 p.m., I've got the very talented Miss Birdley, amazing singer and songwriter. Very much looking forward to that Q&A. Just really give her an opportunity to share her experience and her music journey, her passions, her future goals. That's going to be very exciting. And a few hours after that, I've got my former host, Mr. Jordan Patrick, who's going to be coming on, and we are going to have an all baseball segment. So it'll be very fun to see him yet again. Until next time, I am your host, Richie, and I am out. I hope you guys enjoy the rest of your day. Take care.